In the churning waters of Latin American geopolitics, one scenario looms large and unsettling: a standoff between the military machinery of the United States and the embattled forces of Venezuela. At the heart of this tension lies a remarkable admission. Rather than preparing for conventional defense, Venezuela is planning for guerrilla-style resistance and widespread chaos in the event of a U.S. air or ground assault. This pivot toward asymmetric warfare reflects not bravado but stark realism, a recognition that its conventional capabilities stand little chance against one of the world's most powerful militaries. The story that unfolds is one of strategy born from constraint, national myth-making colliding with material weakness, and a region that stands on the cusp of unpredictable escalation. The first chapter of this unfolding drama concerns the state of Venezuela's military establishment. The Venezuela armed forces face serious structural issues: outdated equipment, low morale, inadequate pay, and supply shortages. For example, some unit commanders have reportedly had to negotiate with local food producers simply to feed their troops. Despite ambitious rhetoric about millions of civilian militia, insiders estimate only a few thousand might realistically mobilize in the event of a full-scale crisis. The result is a paradox. Venezuela's leadership publicly projects defiance and readiness, but behind the scenes acknowledges it could not survive a conventional war against a modern adversary. "We wouldn't last 2 hours in a conventional war," one source disclosed. In short, the foundation for defense is weak, and that drives the shift toward alternative strategies. We must consider the external pressure that has triggered Venezuela's reconfiguration of defense strategy. The Donald Trump administration has repeatedly floated the possibility of ground operations in Venezuela, following strikes on alleged drug trafficking vessels in the Caribbean and a substantial military buildup in the region. While Trump later denied targeting strikes inside Venezuela, the ambiguity itself serves as a strategic lever. For Venezuela's leadership, the possibility of U.S. intervention is no longer hypothetical. It underwrites the urgency to prepare for a showdown, even if one is not imminent. This is not simply a readiness exercise, it is a signal to Caracas, to Washington, and to international observers that the cost of intervention could rise sharply. Faced with a conventional mismatch, Venezuela is turning to a strategy of prolonged resistance. Planning documents seen by reporters indicate that more than 280 locations across the country have been identified for guerrilla-style operations. Small mobile units designed to carry out sabotage, strikes, ambushes, and other irregular warfare tactics. This approach reframes the battlefield, away from open confrontation and toward attrition, disruption, and indefinite engagement. President Nicolas Maduro has invoked talk of taking the fight to the last mountain, the last town, and the last city. The logic: if you can't win conventionally, you make the opponent pay a heavy price in time, logistics, and political capital. In doing so, Venezuela hopes to turn its weakness into a form of deterrence by making any intervention costly, messy, and protracted. But guerrilla warfare in remote terrain is only half of the plan. The second pillar is what Caracas internally calls anarchization. This entails using intelligence services, armed party loyalists and militias inside urban centers, especially the capital, Caracas, to sow disorder, disrupt governance, and create a hostile environment for any potential foreign force. In effect, the streets become a front line. The objective isn't just to fight invading troops, it is to undermine the very fabric of control and make the country ungovernable for outsiders. Together, the two strategies, guerrilla resistance in terrain and chaos in cities, form a hybrid defensive doctrine, one rooted in deterrence through complexity and one in survival through disruption. Despite the rhetoric, the odds for Venezuela are long. Sources admit that the military is not prepared or professionalized for a conflict with a highly trained global power. Equipment is outdated, part of the pay structure is deeply inadequate, soldiers reportedly earn around $100 a month, and logistics remain shaky. In an anarchization scenario, Analysts estimate only 5,000 to 7,000 people might participate in urban disorder, far fewer than the millions sometimes claimed. For the United States, the lesson is also cautionary. Any intervention would likely trigger a drawn-out insurgency in terrain and social space the U.S. may find less comfortable than expected. Victory on paper becomes far more elusive when the opponent shifts the rules of engagement. A confrontation here would not be contained within Venezuela's borders. The region is interlinked. Drug trafficking routes, guerrilla groups, militant proxies, and shifting alliances all complicate the calculus. Caracas has leaned on allies like Russia for repairs and upgrades to its decaying arsenal. From Washington's perspective, the anti-narcotics campaign has expanded into a broader confrontation. Critics warn that extrajudicial killings at sea, sovereignty violations, and mission creep may undermine U.S. legal and moral standing. For Latin America, precedent matters. If the U.S. intervenes here, others will watch closely. Will the region be pulled into wider instability? Will alliances shift? The answers may reshape defense postures and diplomatic alignments for years to come. Meanwhile, on 10th November, Al Jazeera reports the United States has carried out another set of military strikes against what it says are drug boats in international waters headed to the country. Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth said on Monday that the U.S. military targeted 2 vessels in the eastern Pacific Ocean on Sunday, killing 6 people. These vessels were known by our intelligence to be associated with illicit narcotics smuggling, were carrying narcotics, and were transiting along a known narco-trafficking transit route in the eastern Pacific, he wrote in a social media post. Both strikes were conducted in international waters, and 3 male narco-terrorists were aboard each vessel. All 6 were killed. No U.S. forces were harmed. The administration of President Donald Trump has faced mounting criticism over such attacks, including accusations of violating domestic and international law. But Washington appears to be stepping up the campaign. Sunday's deadly double attack was the 4th this month. Previous strikes in the Pacific and Caribbean Sea killed at least 8 people, according to U.S. authorities. The Trump administration started targeting boats in the Caribbean in September, and later expanded its military push to the Pacific Ocean. The U.S. has carried out 18 strikes on vessels so far, killing dozens of people. Last month, United Nations Rights Chief Volker Turk said the U.S. attacks have no justification under international law. These attacks, and their mounting human cost, are unacceptable, Turk said. The U.S. must halt such attacks and take all measures necessary to prevent the extrajudicial killing of people aboard these boats, whatever the criminal conduct alleged against them. Under President Trump, we are protecting the homeland and killing these cartel terrorists who wish to harm our country and its people, Hegseth said on Monday. Other than grainy footage showing the strikes, the Trump administration has not provided concrete proof that the vessels targeted were carrying drugs. Trump himself has previously joked that fishermen are now afraid to operate in the Caribbean off the coast of Venezuela. As we step back from the headline of guerrilla response, the bigger picture emerges. Venezuela is confronting not just a hypothetical attack, but its own vulnerabilities. The strategy it has designed, prolonged resistance plus urban chaos, is born of necessity, not choice. It acknowledges the conventional gap and attempts to weaponize what remains: geography, social complexity, and will. For the United States, the situation offers no simple playbook. The might of its forces is real, but the terrain, physical, political, and informational, is far less forgiving. In the end, this is less about whether war will come and more about how both sides are preparing for the possibility that it might. If Venezuela cannot win, its aim is simply to resist, to make any intervention unsustainable, and that low-intensity, high-ambiguity fight might be the most dangerous kind of all. As the world watches, the stakes are not just territorial, they are tactical, strategic, and moral. The dice are rolled not on the open battlefield, but in the shadows of urban chaos and guerrilla resilience. And in that arena, victory may not mean what we think.